Welcome to the last episode of Career Break Possible. My name is Coach Liz, and I'm a career break and transition coach. And over the last few months, we've been trekking with Samina, a young professional woman who's been considering going on a career break after she ran into her friend Becca, who just got back from one. Well, today we're going to talk with a real life Samina, Evette Alexander. Evette is taking a 1-year career break along with a husband who's going to continue to work and their 2 beautiful children. We're going to hear a little bit of their story, what prompted Evette to go on this career break, and what she's planning on her year off. I hope you enjoy her story. So welcome, Matt and Evette. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about who you are, where you live, and what you've been doing in life and maybe career over the past couple of years.
I'm Evette Alexander. This is Matt, and we've been living in Miami, Florida since 2010-ish. I came a little bit earlier. We're a couple. We have 2 kids. They're aged almost 8 now and 2, and we've been both working here in Miami and in a neighborhood that we love for since we got married about 11 years ago now. So you want to share a little bit about us?
Yeah, I came to Miami originally because I was a part of a team that was starting a church. So I pastored a community here for about 9 years or so. And that's how Liz and I got to know each other. The work I do now, I'm continuing to work with pastors and ministry leaders, but kind of in a more of a remote. I work with a couple of different ministries that are remote and decentralized in that kind of way.
And I've just transitioned out of my work. So I've been working originally at a large foundation here in Miami as a director of essentially research and strategy that the foundation was doing. And most recently as the executive director of a small nonprofit here that had to do with art and the environment.
And Evette, I know you've been doing some really important work in Miami, so that's really exciting. But even more exciting was a couple of months ago when you shared that you were really considering going on a sabbatical career break. We're going to be using that word interchangeably. Tell me what prompted that decision for you to go on this break.
Yeah, I think it was a multitude of things. Like I think usually it happens when people do a career break. So we've just had the pandemic, and about a year ago, I was transitioning out of one role that was a pretty demanding full-time job, and I was entering into a new job. And while I was stepping into a new role, I also had like this nagging feeling, or this sense that there was an invitation for me to take a sabbatical, and to the kind of phrase at the time that was striking me as to really let the land rest, because when in agriculture, when you are plowing the land and working, growing crops on a land, you can't do it forever. You have to take some time to let the land rest, or it doesn't produce as much. It's not as generative. It needs to have some time to rest in between being productive. And this is an old Jewish concept. The concept of sabbatical is kind of tied up with this concept of land and resting the land, as well as resting people. So anyways, I had this kind of invitation about a year ago, but I was heading into a new role. And I was kind of like, well, let me see how to try to integrate some, restful practices and self-care into this role while parenting, while this, while that. And so, I tried to kind of do an active version of it, but, life's been going at a pretty fast pace for a while. And like earlier this year, in January, I started tracking some of my health data, and saw some funny things popping up, and worked with a doctor to get a little bit more clarity around some things. And essentially, what came back was, I seem to have a lot of, that my body is telling me in a way that I'm quite stressed, and I'm having a hard time handling the stress, which I didn't really feel all that stressed, but I did feel tired, and I did feel like it was hard to do some things that maybe were, kind of came easily to me normally. And so I think the more I sat with it and kind of started paying attention to what was in front of me, I started realizing that, I was pretty burnt out from the pace of having like these demanding jobs, and they required a lot of mental work and thinking and leadership, and obviously it had challenges, and parenting. So and we were coming out of the pandemic, so really I think it all kind of compiled together to create a little bit of a perfect storm of being a lot over the last 3 years. We had a baby in the middle of the pandemic. We have a 2020 baby who's a toddler now. And, during the pandemic for a couple of years, I was working, during the day, and Matt was working at night. We were switching off to be able with the baby to be able to, not have them in childcare. And so I had the kids, I was like a single mom at night and working full time in the day. And it was just a lot. And, I'm somebody with a good amount of energy normally. So I think it took me a while, and it took some health data for me to really see that, a change needed to occur. And I wanted to kind of take it seriously and make a change before, letting something drag out too long. So I transitioned out of my work a month ago, and I already am feeling a lot better. I walk every day. I'm moving every day. Before I was, kind of sitting at a screen for 8 hours, and then home with the kids, sitting, making dinner and sitting, and doing homework and reading to the toddlers. So I think there's a lot of life that's already coming back just in the last few weeks, and I'm excited to head into a sabbatical where I have a lot of intention around ways to cultivate life over the next year.
What is it going to look like, or what are the results of letting the land rest? We're going to kind of jump on that phrase, but for you, Evette, what are you hoping might happen as a result of this season?
So the first kind of part of the sabbatical I see is kind of, transition and landing and rest, this kind of deep rest, delight, enjoying our new place, being out in nature, moving a lot, exploring. And then, the second half would be a lot about exploring and brainstorming and discerning about the future, about what we might be invited into in terms of what we want to do with our time.
What about you, Matt? So you're not actually going on a career break. You're going to continue to work, but I'm sure things will shift in your life. Tell me what you're hoping, some of the benefits of the career break will be for Evette, and think about in terms of your family. And what are you hoping for Evette as well?
Yeah. Well, I think some of my hopes for Evette is that this can be like a real big reset for her, in a real holistic way, physically, emotionally, spiritually, relationally. The one of the most important things that I think that Evette and I are becoming more and more convinced of for our family, like one of the most important things that we can do to have a healthy family life and to serve our kids really well is for us to be healthy people ourselves. Right. And so that's a lot, I think, about what we're trying to tap into, and a big overarching kind of goal and hope for this year. And so for me, like one of the big, desires and longings is for deeper friendships. And we've had amazing friends in Miami, and a lot of them have moved out of the city over the years, and that's been hard. There's been a lot of goodbyes, and so part of why, when we start to think about where could we possibly do a sabbatical, part of why Waco was one of the first places we started to think about was because of the long-standing and deep friendships that are. And we're also really excited about there's a church, a Christian community in Waco that is really rooted in Christian contemplative practices and Christian contemplative spirituality, which has become an increasing passion and in a very important part of our life. And so,
Waco made a lot of sense in the short term and potentially as a long-term place for us, which made us, excited to move and try it out. And we don't feel like we're, we feel like it'll be great for the career break. And if not, long-term. So it'll be a good kind of soft landing spot for us. Lots of access to people, to families nearby, to nature, hiking along the river. We're going to be living within an easy walk to an amazing riverfront park with beautiful trails and we're excited to spend a lot of time outdoors and with people that we enjoy and with each other.
It sounds wonderful. It sounds like you guys really thought through, your values, the things that you value, and you sort of were intentional about where you wanted to go, for how long. And some key things that I hear are like you needed some good community, some good friends nearby, potentially family. You also wanted to be around like-minded people. So finding a church community that kind of encompasses who you are. I know both of you guys love the outdoors, especially you, Evette, and I know you love taking your kids outdoors and really having them be present. And so like Waco is really strategic in that. So it sounds like you've been really intentional and strategic about the space and place where you're going to go. And that's really fun to hear. Tell me just maybe basically what your day-to-day is going to look like practically, Evette.
Sure. Well, I don't have it completely sketched out yet, but I know we'll be dropping the kids off early. They're both in the same school with an early drop-off time, and hope to get out and get active in the nice morning weather, and maybe take a long walk or something together along the riverfront. And then there's great coffee shops and things like that. So, I mean, Matt will be working, I'll be reading, studying. So we'll probably spend a mix of time together and separate. We'll be joining a gym and a tennis center that has pickleball and things like that we're going to build into the day while the kids are in school. So there'll be some days where, Aiden will be, at the gym and the childcare while we're, doing something healthy and together. And there'll be days when I have an adventure with Aiden and then trade off with Matt and vice versa. So, it's a nice time to spend a little time together with him before he gets to be a real big boy and be in school full time. But, you mentioned the word reset, and I think that this is not just going to be like a reset for me in a lot of ways, but also kind of like a reset and reorientation for us as a family around really the things that really matter to us, like spending, a lot, being really present with our kids matter to us. Being present with other people really matters to us. Our practices around kind of noticing and delighting and finding, joy and finding, being grounded in kind of, love and compassion that we have and that, is out there with the divine. And so I think like this is some of an opportunity to reset and reorient around those things and to potentially do so in a place where we can scale back a little bit of the space that work occupies in our life. We obviously want to continue working, but trying to right size it a bit to, I think, who we want to be as people in the world and what also enables us to be our best, offer the most to our family and to others outside of the family. So.
Well, before we go, I'd love to maybe have you share a word of encouragement to individuals, couples, or even families who either haven't considered going on a career break, and after hearing your story, it might spring something in their spirit, or even just people who have thought about it and really haven't moved toward that. What kind of words of encouragement might you have for them?
I think that finding what is really meaningful to you and how to lean into that is really, really important, no matter who you are, where you are, what circumstances you're in, and even with children as well. So, that's some of what we're doing, what I think is accessible to everybody in different ways. So, I would just encourage people to start noticing that, because I think it's hard to notice when you're kind of in a big daily grind. So, practices around that, mindfulness, paying attention to your energy and, where you have energy and where it's being depleted, and how to kind of take care of your energy or reorient your life in a way to generate more energy. We also started, I think, preparing for flexibility some years ago. So, we really weren't sure what the future held for us, but, I think being on some sort of journey towards financial independence and financial flexibility has enabled us to do something like this, and will continue to enable us to be more intentional with our life and our choices and our work moving forward. So I would encourage everybody to, save and invest to create options for yourselves.
I think it's probably like important to have like a pretty clear purpose behind a sabbatical. And that can come in a whole bunch of different forms, but without having like a pretty clear, like, this is what we're trying to, here's what the big need is, or here's what the big priority is or goal is for a sabbatical. And it doesn't have to be for a year. Like Evette was saying, it could be for a much shorter period of time. Potentially getting out. Sometimes it's really helpful for folks to get out of kind of a rut that they may be in and be in a completely different environment for a time. And that can kind of open up new imagination and perspective and ideas. And
well, this is a really wonderful and exciting time for you guys. And I'm so glad that I get to journey with you guys on it some and hopefully more in the future. And thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, letting us come into your living room and really pick your brain. I have 1,000 more questions, and I'm sure our listeners do too, but hopefully this will be an encouragement for them, and look forward to hearing more about what God is doing in your life. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I hope that you enjoyed the Alexander story. If this story prompted something in you, I'd love to explore some of that with you. Schedule a free Explore coaching session with me at lizsastre.com.